Right now, somewhere on Earth, there is an animal that has everything. Food it never has to hunt for, water that never runs dry, no predators, no disease, no cold nights, no threats of any kind. It lives in a perfect world. And that perfect world is going to kill it. Not with violence, not with hunger, with something far quieter. In 1968, a scientist built a paradise. He filled it with healthy young mice and gave them everything a living creature could want. 5 years later, every single one was dead. And the cause of death is something no autopsy could ever find. This is the experiment that haunted an entire generation of scientists. And the reason it haunts them is that it might not be about mice at all. His name was John Calhoun. He was a behavioral researcher, and he had spent most of his life obsessed with one question. What happens to a society when survival becomes easy? Not hard, not dangerous, easy. By the time he ran his most famous experiment, he had already built this paradise dozens of times before. In old barns, in open fields, in quiet laboratory rooms. 24 versions, one after another. And every single time, the same thing happened. The population would boom. Then it would turn strange. Then it would collapse. He had watched it happen 24 times. The 25th was supposed to be the one that got it right. So he built the most perfect version yet. A metal enclosure, 9 feet on each side. Walls lined with little compartments he called apartments, connected by mesh tunnels that climbed all the way to the ceiling. Food that refilled itself. Water that never stopped flowing. Soft nesting material in every corner. The temperature was held perfectly steady. He calculated that the space could comfortably hold almost 4,000 mice. It would never get anywhere close. On day 1, he placed 4 healthy males and 4 healthy females inside, and he closed the lid. Then he waited. For the first few months, almost nothing happened. The mice explored. They learned the layout. They sorted out who lived where. And then the first babies were born, and the population began to double. Every 55 days, twice as many mice as before. By day 300, there were more than 600 of them. And this is the exact moment everything started to break. Here's the thing nobody expects. In a normal animal population, when there are too many bodies for the space, the extra ones leave. They wander off and find somewhere new. But inside this world, there was nowhere to go. Every territory was already claimed. Every role was already filled. And so a generation of young mice grew up with no place in the world. The young males had nothing to defend, no females to win, no rank to climb toward. So they simply stopped. They drifted into the middle of the enclosure and formed silent, motionless crowds. Calhoun would stand over the pen and watch them do nothing for hours. When another mouse attacked them, they didn't even fight back. They just absorbed it, stood up, walked a few feet, lay back down. But not all of them went quiet. Another group went the opposite way. They became frantic, aggressive, wired wrong. They moved faster than the other mice. They forced their way into nests. They skipped every social ritual the others still followed. And the violence they produced had no purpose anymore. It wasn't competition. It wasn't survival. It was just damage for its own sake. The females felt it too. The ones who couldn't find a place in the social order retreated. They climbed to the highest, emptiest apartments and lived completely alone. They stopped socializing. They stopped mating. They simply opted out. And then came the part that's hardest to read. The mothers who were still raising babies began to fail. In a healthy colony, a male guards the nest while the mother nurses. But the males had given up. So the mothers had to do everything alone, defend and feed and raise, and it was too much. So they stopped. They abandoned their young in random corners. Some forgot which babies were even theirs. In the worst parts of the colony, fewer than 1 in 20 newborns survived. The bodies were still alive, but something underneath had already died. Calhoun watched the whole structure of mouse society, the thing that held them together as a species, quietly dissolve. And then the last generation was born. The babies who survived were raised by mothers who didn't care whether they lived. They grew up never seeing a single example of a normal life. They never learned to fight. They never learned to court. They never learned to be mice. And when they reached adulthood, they did something that disturbed Calhoun more than all the violence combined. Nothing. They didn't fight. They didn't mate. They didn't compete for anything. They ate, they slept, and they groomed themselves, obsessively, constantly. Their fur was flawless because they never got into a single scrape. They were physically perfect specimens. Calhoun gave them a name. He called them the beautiful ones. They looked like the healthiest mice in the entire colony, and they were already extinct. They never reproduced. They couldn't even socialize. Their minds had grown up in a world where every role was already taken, and so they simply withdrew from the species entirely. On day 560, the population hit its peak, just over 2,000 mice. It would never grow again. The last mouse ever conceived inside that world was born not long after, and after that, nothing. No new births, no recovery, just a slow, quiet aging out as the beautiful ones groomed themselves and the lonely females stayed up in their towers and the colony emptied, one death at a time. Until one day, the last mouse died. The paradise was silent. When Calhoun published what he'd seen, the world grabbed the simplest possible lesson. Comfort kills. Give a creature everything, and it falls apart. The beautiful ones became a warning. Politicians used them. Preachers used them. Anyone who wanted to argue that modern life was making us soft pointed to those mice. But that wasn't actually what Calhoun said. Read his own words, and the real conclusion is quieter and much more unsettling. It was never about comfort. The food never ran out. The water never ran out. What ran out was something nobody thought to put inside the paradise in the first place. Purpose. A reason to participate. Calhoun's real argument was this: when a population grows faster than the number of meaningful roles it can offer, the leftover individuals have nowhere to belong. The fighters had no one worth fighting. The mothers were defending nests no one helped them keep. The young inherited nothing because there was nothing left to inherit. And when there's no role to fill, no place that needs you, no reason your existence matters to anyone else, the spirit dies first. The body just takes a while to catch up. Calhoun called it a death of the spirit, followed years later by a death of the body. The mice didn't starve. They didn't freeze. They didn't get sick. They lost the thing that made being alive feel like anything at all. And here is the part almost nobody quotes. Calhoun did not think this was inevitable. He spent the rest of his life not predicting doom, but trying to prevent it. He kept building new worlds. He kept changing one variable at a time. He was searching for the single ingredient he could add back into paradise that would let it survive. He believed humans had something the mice didn't. When physical space runs out, he wrote, we can expand into a different kind of space. Ideas, imagination, new kinds of work, new roles that never existed before. A mouse cannot invent a new way to be a mouse, but we can invent new ways to be human. We can build meaning where there was none. That, he believed, was our only way out. Now look at the experiment again. A world with unlimited food, unlimited comfort, falling birth rates, a generation that's retreating from each other, some lost in screens, some lost in rage, some just quietly opting out, and a strange new pressure to look perfect while feeling like you matter to no one. Calhoun saw all of it. In 1968, in a metal box 9 feet on a side. He wasn't really studying mice. He was studying what happens to any social creature when it gets everything it ever wanted, except a reason to want anything at all. The mice never had a choice. Their world was sealed. Their roles were fixed. Their ending was written the moment the lid came down. But that's the one place the metaphor breaks. Because we are not sealed in. We can still build the rooms that don't exist yet. We can still make ourselves necessary to each other. The question Universe 25 leaves behind isn't whether comfort will destroy us. It's whether, given everything, we'll still find a reason to keep going. The mice couldn't answer that. We still can.